This is Super Television, and we are here today in our studio. This is a special interview with authorities of BudgIT Liberia, and I'm told BudgIT Liberia is an anti-graft institution that is working to track fundings that was donated to Liberia during the coronavirus. We're going to be talking about our own workings in Liberia and how do they intend to track these funds that were donated to Liberia by some of her international partners. So let's join our guest, who I'm told is one of the hierarchy from BudgIT Liberia. Welcome to Super TV.
Thank you very much.
So, won't you mind introducing yourself for the audience?
All right, okay. My name is Teewon Simon, and I'm Senior Program Officer from BudgIT Nigeria, and part of our offices just what we have here in Liberia as well. And yes, we are here to institute the organization in Liberia and also try as much as possible to ameliorate all the funding issues and also the opacity in funding to the people of Liberia, and also as much as making sure that people of Liberia understand how much is coming in, who are these donors, bilateral donors, multilateral donors, or private donors, and also try to understand what these funds were used for actually. So that's why we are here.
So before I go to your work and how you intend to carry on your own duty to Liberia, so our people viewing want to know what is BudgIT Liberia. Right. I mean, how did you come into being? How did your existence come before reaching Liberia?
All right, so BudgIT has been in operation for 10 years now, and we're in Ghana, we're in Sierra Leone, and we're in Nigeria, right? And we are now in Liberia, and it's almost a year now that operation started in Liberia. And what we're doing in Liberia as an organization is just what we are also doing in all other countries that I've mentioned earlier. And basically what we do is a policy-driven organization trying to break down the public budget for the understanding of the citizens, right? And we have citizens in Liberia that we believe should understand what their budget talks about year in, year out, right? For every fiscal year, there's a budget, there's a spending, there's a budget performance, right? And all of this information, what we've seen so far is that a lot of people don't even understand what the content of their budget is. A lot of people don't understand what they don't understand what they as citizens need to get as to what their spendings are on infrastructure, on recurrent expenditure, on capital expenditure, and also even on debt, right? So a lot of people don't understand where Liberia stands as a country. So it's beyond the coronavirus fund, because the coronavirus project is just one of our projects in Liberia, right? We are looking into understanding what the whole budget looks like, right? And what we are doing is we understand that this is a very big document, right? Very voluminous, right? But what we're trying to do is we are breaking it down and also using a tool called infographics, right? So a lot of people might not understand what infographics is. Simply is we get the data, we translate the data and design the data into graphical elements that you can see, right? So you can have a pie chart, for an example, right? So
what do you intend, to achieve with the sensitization of, getting the public to know about their budget? What is your intent? At the end of the day, what do you want to achieve?
Number one, the first thing first is civic education, right? Because you need to understand that in as much as education, a form of education is going on in school, there's also a form of education that helps governance, right? We need to help people understand what is going on in their government, right? And it's more or less like giving them the education they need, right? Because at the end of the day, if we don't give them the education they need, they are not able to ask the right questions. And governance is a cycle. It comes full cycle when people are able to engage their electorate, right? It comes full cycle when people are able to, when people have the right information as to the questions they need to ask. Because you can't ask questions if you don't have the right information. So one of the major things we're doing is educating people. Number two is we are helping the Liberian citizens to understand what their fiscal structure looks like, right? You need to know how much debt your country has. You need to know what generates income for your country. You understand? You need to know your IDR. You need to even know your budget performance, right? there's a budget every fiscal year, you understand? And this budget, you need to understand if it actually attained what it was postulated to attain, right? Because budget is like at the start of the year, right? So it guides your workings, it guides your activities as to all ministries, as to all projects, as to all infrastructures that you want to construct for the country. So even in your health, education, so all of these things are budgeted for. Right at the end of the year, you want to know if these things, this amount of money that was budgeted for these things was actually achieved. Right, so that's the essence. Those are part of the reasons why we are here.
So now let's look at, the ongoing project with the tracking of coronavirus funds. And from my understanding, this project is lasting from January to October, and coronavirus have been around in Liberia since of last year. And you are just launching this project in this year. So how are you going about tracking funds that have come, prior to the launching of the project?
All right, so thank you very much for that question. So, a lot of projects have their own focal points, right? And this project's focal point is to understand how much Liberia got as a country as to international donations, even as to private donations that come within the country, right, to the government and to some civil society organizations. And how we're going about that is just that we are aware that it's hard to get information. But what we're doing is we are going on the platforms of these donors, right? For example, USAID, for example, the World Bank, for example, the IMF, right? So we're checking all of their platforms and seeing how much has been donated to Liberia, right? So that's how we're getting these funds, and that's how we're able to track these funds. But where the work is to know if these funds that have been received by Liberia, have they been used for the right purposes? Have they been able to achieve what the funders have in mind, right? Because at the end of the day, we had Ebola, right? And we were here during Ebola, and we were able to do some analysis, and we saw that there was some mismanagement of funds. But we don't want that to happen again, right? And even if that is happening, or if that has happened, we are trying as much as possible to put in mechanisms so that the government will be aware that there's a third eye watching their activities. There's a third eye making sure that all of these funds are spent judiciously.
But your institution is not one of the first of a kind. I'm talking about institutions that try to preach integrity. We have had so many anti-graft institutions in Liberia, but the issue of mismanagement is an old-age problem that continues to live in our country. So what different mechanism are you bringing to the board so that this can somehow be curtailed?
Yeah, so I thank you for that question. We are not a law enforcement agency, right? So we are a civil society organization. And like I said earlier on, see, we were in markets today, right? And what we saw, because part of the project is to track human and good stories, as to expose the pain of the Liberian people, and also to know where the government did well, right? We were in the market today, and I can tell you for a fact that there's a lot of citizen apathy, right? Which is more or less like citizens are not interested, or citizens are scared to talk about politics. Citizens are afraid to even ask questions, right? So one of the things we're trying to do is, and we also realize that because people don't have the right information, they don't know the right questions to ask, right? So the mechanism that we're bringing is, we're going to have town hall meetings, we're going to do infographics, we're going to print out the budget documents, even in language they can understand, not just this English language that we're speaking, because we understand that the people that even ask most of these questions don't speak the language that we speak, right? So there's a barrier, and there's a lack of information that is going on there. So that gap is what we are here to bridge, right? That lack of information gap, that lack of right information, right? So we are also going to put this thing, we are doing some radio shows, right? And these radio shows are speaking directly into what, do you know how much your representative is supposed to administer to you for this fiscal year? Do you know how many projects your legislator is supposed to handle for this fiscal? So all of these and many more things are things we put into place.
Let me turn this question back to you. We appreciate integrity, and most often institution of this nature will have people with integrity error. So who are some of these institutions or individuals that you are working with
that you think you can be trusted to achieve a goal?
All right. So to be honest, we are not alone, right? And we're working with Follow the Money, right? We're working with Liberia. We're working with YAD. We're working with some volunteers as well. So we are trying to also leverage on the work these guys have done, and as much as possible to make sure that we are all pushing, because it's always a difficult thing to be a one person pushing the whole pack, right? So when you come out as a coalition of organizations, right, it's always easier and people tend to take you more serious, because at the end of the day, you are all bringing out facts and figures and information people can relate with, right? So that's what we're leveraging on, and these are the organizations that we're working with.
So look at how decentralized is your program?
Come again?
How decentralized?
Okay. So yes. So we are looking at all of the counties, and how we're doing that is we are leveraging with CSOs in these counties. Right? We'll visit the ones we can visit. We have stated like 5 counties to visit: Gabi, Monserrado, and some other ones. I don't know their names off my head. But we have also now partnered with some other CSOs in some of all of the other counties that we can leverage on, right? Because at the end of the day, we understand that we might not have the human capacity to go to all of the counties, but we have the information, right? And we know that there are some people in these counties that are ready to listen to what we have to say and run with the vision. So that's what we're trying to do.
So, tell me, the issue of coronavirus didn't just affect certain sectors of society. We have the disadvantaged people, we have the visually impaired, we have the older folks. And they too were somehow affected by, the COVID-19. And you are trying to track funds that were donated to Liberia during the COVID-19 period. Are they inclusive in your plans?
Yes. So, because yesterday when we were having a press conference, there was a union leader from the visually impaired people that was also part of the conference, and he was asking this question that he asked. And I said, I want to believe that there's a commission that's in charge of people living with disabilities in Liberia, right? And there's a particular amount of money that was awarded to this particular commission to take care of these people, right? So we will look into that and we'll see if this money will actually judiciously spent. So while we're having a press conference yesterday, somebody made mention of a $1 million support to private school teachers, right, in a particular county. So we're looking at that as well to see if that funds were disbursed, right, and to see, we will get people that they got these funds. We'll get them on camera, we'll record them, we'll ask them questions. Did you get these funds? Were these funds mismanaged? You understand? So all of these things are made. And why we're doing this is to be able to put out these words, right, so that sometimes, right, from the top, they are good intentions, but the middlemen are the ones that mismanage some of these things, right? So what we're putting out there is for the attention of people at the top, right? So to also see if there was any mismanagement whatsoever, right? And so that it can also bring into forefront to say, okay, this is what we've spent, this is what we've gotten. And we're challenging the government to bring out how much they've received locally, right? And how much they've spent, to publish it for the whole population to see. And I believe that will encourage transparency and accountability, because at the end of the day, that's all we seek.
You bring into the table individuals with integrity to implement this project. Because many a times institutions like yours will be established, but at the end of the day, you will see they only achieve their goal because they themselves will be involved in such practice that they are trying to speak against. So have you come to the foregone conclusion that you need people of like minds to achieve this goal?
All right, so like I said earlier on, the organization has been running for 10 years, right? And it's been successful so far because we are very strict when it comes to issues of integrity, issues of accountability, and issues of transparency. Because at the end of the day, you can't be pushing against something and be still be faulty at it. So we have a team here in Liberia that is being led by Abraham Vani, and it's somebody that we can vouch for. And we have our own rules of operation as well, right? It's called standard operation procedures. So naturally and by law, if you're working with the organization, you don't get anything from the country you're working from, which is honorarium, gifts, or anything whatsoever is prohibited, right? Because at the end of the day, by the time you start getting gifts, you start getting honorariums, you start getting envelopes, they start to sway what they want you to say, right? So it's very imperative for the kind of work we do that we you are just satisfied with your salaries, right? And you're satisfied with what you get from the organization. Any iota of doubt, right, sets you apart automatically because of the kind of work that we do.
So the project been running since January.
Yes.
How far are we now?
It became imperative to do a press conference yesterday because we want to raise the awareness of people.
Are you telling me still raising awareness by now since January? Just up to October. October is nowhere far from
Yeah, it's nowhere far from me, and that's why we started since January with the research work, right? The research work is done, and it's going to be published very soon. So the research work is the first batch of the work.
So how many phases do we have?
We have 2 phases, right? So we have the research first phase, and we have the research second phase, right? And the third thing is for us to get human angle stories, and the fourth thing is to track projects around the counties and country, right? And work has already started on all of these 4.
So the first phase is a tracking project. So how many projects have you tracked since the first phase?
So we're looking at, for some counties, we're looking at street lights donated by the government. We want to know if they were installed. For some of the counties, we're looking at if the payment that the government made as to palliatives, as to things that can also cushion the effect of the lockdown and cushion the effect of the virus itself, if they were actually distributed to the right people. We're looking at that as well. And for some counties, there were some infrastructural projects that the government said they did, right? So we're looking at all of that as well too. We're doing a report as to where these things are. Did you get value for money?
Have you been tracking funding or donation through government institutions? Because I understand there are some organizations, local or international, receive funding from partners to implement some coronavirus project. Are you possible?
Yes, we also, because even in the press conferences, we make it very, very clear that we're looking at donations to the government and to some of these civil society organizations, right? Because we understand that some people get some funding as well. So we're looking at all of that, right? So we are not just isolating the government. We are also looking at all of that institutions as well. So we have 2 assignments here, the government and also these institutions have got funding to do some projects in Liberia.
So local can monitor value attached to achieving this project. What is the cost to achieve this project?
Right, so the cost is, so you can't quantify the human cost, right? You can't quantify the human cost, and it takes a lot to also set up an office in this country. We know that things are very much expensive, and we are also trying as much as possible to spend money as to traveling around all the counties, right? Also doing human and
So let me before starting this project, there should be a specific project.
Yes.
But if you don't be very
I'll be clear. Why not? We have 4,000 for the research, right? And we have $4,000 for the research work.
The entire project is 4,000?
No, for the research work.
Okay.
$4,000. $4,000 will not take the whole project. You and I know that. It's not going to go.
You told me the project is 2 phases. One,
yes,
the first phase of research, the second phase of research.
Of course. No, the first phase research, right? There's 2 phases for the research. There's the first phase for the research, and there's the second phase for the research.
I want you to give me the actual cost of the project, because the research is a component of the project.
Yes, so the actual cost of the project for Liberia is $20,000.
$20,000.
Yes.
So how do you generate this fund?
So the fund is yes, the fund is from donor funds, right? We have small foundation and we have Fulton Foundation, right? So, and like I said earlier on, the project is running in 7 African countries simultaneously, right? We have Ghana, we have Cameroon, we have Kenya, we have Malawi, we have Sierra Leone, we have Nigeria, we have Ethiopia, right? Running in all of these countries simultaneously, right? And what we're trying to achieve is we want to know in all of these African countries if, a lot of funding came to Africa, right, in billions of dollars, right? We want to know if these fundings achieved the right purpose that they were specified to achieve, right? But for Liberia, yes, we are making sure that the truth is that even the funding we have for Liberia cannot be enough, and that's why we are making sure we are leveraging on partnerships, right, for people who believe in this mission as well, that can also put in their work into it. And we are not just carrying this on our shoulders alone, right? Because we are leveraging on what they are doing as well. It's a partnership within. So we have Follow the Money, we have Global Integrity, we have Liberia, we have Wikipedia, we have there's a coalition of volunteers as well that we are working with. So all of these organizations are contributing one way or the other.
So how soon do we expect the research component of the project and so that we'll be seeing results of, project or funds that you have tracked and where they were implemented for the right purposes?
Yeah, so ending of April. In April ending, we are bringing out a document that we also invite media to come for the launch. So yes.
So that's what I'm asking. How soon do we?
Yes, so that's what I said. April ending.
April.
Yes.
So after April, we'll start seeing project
exactly.
Exactly. So it was very nice to ask me to grab and there's a lot of things you want to talk that I didn't ask you.
Well, basically, what we just want to do here is we want to encourage people of Nigeria to support the work we're doing, because at the end of the day, it's for the benefit of the whole country, right? And we want to encourage people of Nigeria to take it as an assignment to also be ready to engage their elected officials. Governance is not just doing elections, right? The circle of governance is not complete until the House President and until every citizen of Liberia gets involved, and that's why we are here. So we ask for your support. We ask for, and our country office is here in Liberia. You can always reach out to us and also get more of what we're doing on our social media handles. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. So this is how we like to come to this special end of this special interview. Has been Teewon George Manakpalah, the presenter. Goodbye.